So let me just capitulate again what we did here. So, so the focus here is on a model where the ideas are creating opportunities for investment. The ideas are not the investments themselves. They are not innovations. We often use the word idea, by the way, for knowledge in this subject, or we use the word idea for innovation. So this is a bit infelicitous because I'm changing the definition of the word idea. And the reason I wouldn't do that if I were starting on this agenda today, but actually it goes back some years, and so I can't really change it in my own lexicon. What we're actually emphasizing here is that the scarcity of ideas is a constraint on progress. It's not just that firms are unwilling to invest resources. It is not true that we could have had, I don't know, bioengineering in 1854 if we had just thrown enough resources at it. That's not obvious to me, because there's a constraint on progress that's not just about throwing resources at the innovative problem. There's a constraint on progress that has to do with something that's far more important and probably more limited, and that is imagination. It's the fact that these investment opportunities are not eternally present. There is such a thing as creativity. Things do happen in our brains. This is something psychologists study, but we don't. Economists do not have a model of imagination or creativity or indeed discovery. I mean, we've been working on this subject for about 40 years now, but we don't have the roots of this subject. We don't have a theory for the roots of this subject. And where I think it leads us astray is in trying to understand growth. So as a microeconomist, I don't work on growth. But if you, again, coming back to my, my preliminary comments, if you want to understand why do some countries grow more than others, there's more to it than the willingness to invest resources. So there has to be something to creating cauldrons. Nothing in this paper, the way in which this paper doesn't yet get to those important ideas, is it shifts the focus to processes which generate ideas rather than to processes which get us to invest resources for inventing the internet era or technologies for the internet. You know, people often ask, you know, why Silicon Valley? What's different about Silicon Valley? And for a long time, the answer I gave was order statistics. You know, there are a lot of places doing innovation. Somebody had to come out on top. Order statistics. It could have been somewhere else. It happened to be Silicon Valley. There is no explanation. It's just order statistics. But actually, I think that answer is wrong. I mean, to some degree, the answer is right because of randomness in the world. But there is another inquiry about it. The other inquiry about it is about the institutions that create Silicon Valley, the sheer density of people working on the same problems in Silicon Valley. And of course, that has all the conflict between, on the one hand, being rivals, on the other hand, learning from each other. All the conflicts that pervade, you know, economic life. Rivalry on the one hand, but learning from each other on the other hand. That certainly is absolutely the foundation of how Silicon Valley works. And of course, there are legal institutions that attend that, which legal scholars study. So the ease with which scientists can leave one company and join another without violating the rights of the first company. What's the right balancing there for the sharing of ideas, which on the one hand protects against rivalry, that is, protects against the loss in profit that would come from just stealing from the firm, while at the same time creating this idea-generating process. That's a balancing process that has to be buried deep in the institutions. So where this goes in the long run, I think, is to institutions. That's not in this paper, but it's the agenda that this paper is leading us to. Thank you.
Okay, we have about 10 minutes for questions, if any. Yes. The lights are terrible here, so if I don't see you, please just shout.
Say some words in defense of growth. Yeah, I would say some words in defense of growth theory.
Uh-oh.
Growth theory, and then okay, then, thank you. Then I would say some words in defense of growth theory, and then I would try to ask you a question concerning what the contribution for growth theory of your approach would be. The first is what is resources? No? Then I would say that ideas are resources too, and the theory of human capital, that is one of an important pillar of growth theory, goes exactly in the same direction that you are going now, than saying, well, part of the way in which society accumulates resources is through ideas, and there is theories of knowledge, and there is a lot of theories that in some sense are highly related to your statement that ideas are fundamental. What I see new, and I didn't see until now, is this idea that there is a lot of, say, private information, and then how authorities have to deal with this private information. And in this sense, I think that there must be something that growth theory should take into account, and I would like to see it. Thank you very much.
Yes, I think I need to be called to account for growth theory. I'm always way too provocative about growth theory, partly because I would like to see this kind of idea introduced to these general equilibrium growth theory models. I do think that the growth theory models have a lot of, still, even after all these years, untapped potential to explain. Well, as I'm sure you know, there are many growth theory models that now are approaching the question of why is there divergence in some countries and so on. I think that a good direction, I don't know what the connection should be between the macro version of this and the micro version of this, but I think a good direction is to think in terms of institutions that can foment ideas in this way to accelerate within a country the growth process. You know, yes, they're resources, they're human capital, but to some degree they're just institutions, and I don't mean that in a minimizing way, but to the extent that it's institutions, you know, creating these cauldrons of thought and discussion is something you can do without actual investments in, it's just what you do with the people after you train them, in a certain sense. I didn't mean to insult growth theory. I think we've learned quite a lot from growth theory.